Welcome back, drawing buddies. Today we are going to draw Saturo Gojo. We're going to go from pencils to inks to colors. So if that's something that sounds good to you, let's draw. Gojo's first appearance is in a short series called Tokyo Metropolitan Cursed Technical School. And then that was later adapted to be Jujutsu Kaisen number 0. His first anime appearance is in the second episode of Jujutsu Kaisen, where, he does his best to save Genji. I believe I'm saying his name right, but anyway, forward we go. So the pencils on this, the colors, inks, this is a pretty quick one. The whole video is only 32 minutes. So Gojo, when he was born, he pretty much shifted the whole world. He was the strongest. He is the strongest. He was so strong that the world had to adapt to him. So curses got stronger, everything got more violent just because he existed, because he was so strong that what existed before couldn't keep up, it couldn't compete. So this drawing actually goes by fairly quickly. The pencils go by pretty quickly, the inks go by pretty quickly, the colors go by pretty quickly, and because of that I got this one playing slower than normal, or it would have been like a 15-minute video. So it's still, sped up a bit because, trust me, watching the real-time one can get pretty old pretty quick unless you're following along. And those I put up as extended videos on Wednesdays, so if you just want to actually follow along in almost real time, I speed them up a little bit because they needed it. But if you want something that's slowed down that you could actually sit there and draw with, the extended versions come out on Wednesday. So this will come out on Friday, and then the Wednesday, the extended version comes out. But anyway, back to Gojo. Gojo has all kinds of busted anime powers. He has limitless, which pretty much means nothing can touch him. He as things get closer to him, they slow down by halves until it gets to the point where they can't move and they can't hit him. It's that simple. So no object can hit him. He uses what's called Six Eyes. It's his main ability. It allows him an unparalleled perception of the cursed world. In his world, curses, invisible curses created by people's fear and anger, control people, possess people, eat people. It's a mess. So in their world, they have things called Jujutsu sorcerers, and they fight the cursed spirits and trap them and kill them and do whatever they can to keep the world safe for normal people. And Gojo just happens to be the most powerful Jujutsu sorcerer. So I started watching this, so I didn't actually start watching it. A friend of mine who watches a lot of anime, every time they put a new one out in the theaters, whether it be My Hero or some random jazz one, I think it was called Blue something, I don't remember. And, so he's like, hey, you want to go see this thing? So I go. And one of them was Jujutsu Kaisen. And it was the movie. And it's basically just Gojo being badass and saving the day and everybody else. And at the end, he kills his best friend, Geto. And so that's where I saw it. And then after I saw it, I was like, wow, that was pretty good. I should probably watch this. So then I watched through all the anime and I saw both seasons, and I haven't seen it since, so my memory on it is really hazy, so I'm going to do my best. So forgive me if I get a couple details wrong or gloss over something important. I did see that they're putting the end of the first part of the last season up as a movie, so I'll probably go see that just to refresh my memory a little on it, and that would have been quite helpful for the making of this video. But it won't be out till later on, till I think the week that this actually comes out. So that doesn't help much. Okay, here I didn't like the hand. It just looked like a big blob of fist, tapping his head, and it didn't really look like he was holding the bandana open so you could see his eye. So I took a picture of my hand and I used it as reference. I don't use reference as much as I should, but this one it definitely felt necessary because I wanted it to look like he was actually pulling up the bandana instead of just, faking it. So I took a picture of my hand and I used it as the basis for the hand in this drawing. Usually I only use reference for costuming other characters, but sometimes you just can't figure that hand out, and you got to do something about it. So don't be worried about it. You don't have to make up everything. You know, it's okay to use reference. The best artists do. Some artists trace and steal, and they get away with it. So I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just telling you to use reference when you need it. And I think that because of the reference, this hand in the end came out much better than what I had originally. And one part about Gojo is he has very bright, piercing blue eyes, and it looks like they're moving. They're so bright. So I definitely didn't want to hide those in this drawing behind his bandana, or his headdress, or his eye covering. And I probably should look up what they call that, but I definitely wanted you to see the eyes. Well, at least one of the eyes. Have I mentioned that I love the fact that we're living in kind of like the golden age of being able to see anime? I don't know if this is the golden age of anime. I mean, that probably would have been the 60s with Astro Boy and Speed Racer and all that stuff. But I mean, as far as being able to watch it goes, because I mentioned in another video, I think it was either the Bakugo or the Ochiko, that when I was younger, anime was either impossible to find, and if you could find it, it was ridiculously expensive. And if you were extremely lucky, either your local video store, yes, video store, dating myself a bit there, or Blockbuster would have a small anime section. The problem with that, though, is it didn't get updated very often because those tapes were extremely expensive. So you just kind of burned through it really quick, and then you were out of anime to watch. And then your options were go spend $60, $70 on a video for 2 or 3 episodes, spend $30 on some random movie that you don't know if it's going to be good or not, or you go to a comic book convention and you find the guy selling the bootlegs. And I mentioned before about the bootlegs, about these there were these two, I'm going to say they were probably Japanese kids, and they would import the videos from Japan, and then they had a friend who spoke fluent Japanese, so she would translate them because they didn't speak Japanese, and then they would make their own subtitles and put them on copies of the video. So you weren't getting the best copy of the video. It was like a second or third generation, because first they had to translate it, then they had to copy it, and then they had to put the subtitles over it, and then they had to make another copy, and then they just kept making copies and copies and copies. And tape deteriorates over time, so after a while the master tape that they made would deteriorate, and the videos would just start to look terrible. And that's how I watched anime back in the 90s. Well, the early 90s. So we have it very lucky now, because I remember when I started watching things again, I got a Funimation account, and I was watching that all the time. And we're 8 minutes into this video so far, and we're already done with the pencils. So now it's time to ink Gojo. And the inks go by pretty much as fast as the pencils did. I think the coloring takes the longest, and that's because I got a little fancy with the background, and I left in the whole part of me getting those dots together that you see in the little side box there. So kind of helps you with technique a little bit as far as backgrounds and getting weird things like that done, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. Like I said, his inks go fast. So anyway, I got the Funimation account, and I was watching all kinds of stuff, and I remember I rewatched the Serial Experiments of Lane. That was one I actually bought the videos for, because they were more affordable for some reason, but they were also really good. I bought the first one, and it's like, hey, that's cool. And then I got the second one. And then when all my videotapes got thrown away, we won't talk about that. I forgot about it. But as I was going through the different things on Funimation, I saw it again and rewatched it. And I need to rewatch it again, because I'm at that point where I totally forgot pretty much everything that happened in it again, which is where I am with Gojo and Jujutsu Kaisen. But they got a new season coming up, so I'll do a quick rewatch of that before the new season. But I should have done it before I started this drawing. So you live and learn, people. If you got to talk about something for a half hour, you should probably rewatch the series or enough of it to get through talking about the character for a half an hour. So the reason I picked Gojo is, one, I like his look. I like the bright blue eyes. I like that he covers his eyes mostly with a bandana for most of the time because the way his powers work. And I like the bright white hair and just the stark, I'm going to say it's probably a black outfit. I don't think it's actually blue. They just use blue to represent black in a lot of these things. And the other thing is I like his attitude, how he just knows he's the best. And he's kind of cocky and he's kind of an ass, but on the other hand, he really cares about people. Like when Yuji, he swallowed a finger and he got cursed, and the council wanted to kill him, basically. And Gojo showed up and he's like, we're not killing him on my watch. I am responsible for him. And if you guys just do anything to him, you'll have to answer to me. So he's basically talking to a council of the most powerful Juju sorcerers out there. And he's basically daring them to try something because he knows he's the strongest and he knows he'd win that fight. And he knows that they wouldn't dare to go up against him because they need him more than he needs them. So yeah, I kind of like the fact that he's just so cocky and full of himself and that he just knows that he would be the one to win any of those fights and that they need him. So if I remember correctly, in the first arc of the last season, it goes over his origin. Well, not really his origin, his time in school with Geto. And it's kind of like a role reversal. He's kind of like the selfish one who doesn't understand, why they should be saving these humans and all that. And Geto was the opposite, who wanted to save the humans. And eventually the roles reverse, and the person they're guarding, when she, if you didn't watch it, spoilers, I'm sorry, she gets killed. Gojo, a switch flips in Gojo, and he basically takes out the church that caused the problem, but it also made him care more, and it made him want to help people instead of just doing it because he can and because he's the most powerful. And Geto had the opposite effect. I think he wanted to basically screw people. Why are we dealing with this? And I'm going to save the world my own way. And he went off and did his own thing. Again, I'm going by memory here, so if it's a little off, I apologize. I also like the villain fight toward the end, where I'm pretty sure the villain didn't have any cursed energy. And his plan was to keep Gojo occupied and awake so that he could get through his defenses with the Limitless. And he actually does, and he thinks he kills Geto. And then Geto just kind of gets up laughing because he also figured out a way to use cursed energy to heal himself. Because unlike most sorcerers, Gojo has a constant stream of cursed energy. He could expand his domain multiple times a day. Something like Limitless, it would burn out within minutes to seconds if a normal sorcerer was using it. But Geto has it on all the time because his Six Eyes is constantly regenerating his cursed energy. So he has an advantage there. It's another reason why he is known as the strongest. And so yeah, he just gets up laughing. He regenerates the big cut the guy put on him. I think he lost a limb. And he regenerates everything and he laughs. But the guy gets away and he ends up killing the girl they're watching. Spoilers again if you haven't seen it, but it's been a couple years, so I'm hoping that you have if you're watching this. So yeah, then when everything is solved and Gojo thinks that everything's okay, the girl dies. It's one of those shock moments. They got through, they got past them. Then Gojo shows his real power and ends up taking out the guy. He kills the guy who kills the girl and who stopped him earlier. And as he's carrying her out of the church or the cult or whatever it is, he contemplates killing everybody in it. And I don't remember if he did or not. So if he did, or if he didn't, please feel free to leave a comment and tell me, because I honestly don't remember. I just know that he goes back and then it changes his whole outlook on everything. And he decides that he wants to be a teacher and help the next generation. And instead of being so selfish and thinking that he could do everything on his own. Gojo has a ton of busted anime powers. He has the Six Eyes that we've talked about before, and the Limitless, where nothing can touch him. But he can also use Infinity. And he has a couple different techniques. He has blue, red, and hollow purple. The blue technique, it attracts the cursed energy, and he can use that. If he can also reverse it and cause a red technique, and that's a pretty powerful one. And then he can combine the two to make a purple, which will just rip apart everything. It adds 0, I think it is, to whatever he applies it to. So it basically just takes you outright. It just leaves a big hole or a void wherever he pushes it. And we're like 15 minutes in, and the inks are done, and now we're coloring Gojo. And I can actually use the fill bucket with all the layers to fill in most of it, but as you can see, it doesn't get everything. So after I do the big fills, I gotta fill everything else in with the pen. And the coloring would have went extremely quick too, except the background. I couldn't find a pre-made texture that had the dots the way I wanted them. My favorite little Bende dots, so I had to make it myself. And to make it myself, on my iPad, I had to do it in Clip Studio, and I've never done anything like that in Clip Studio. Normally I would do something like this in Photoshop, because I'll make a video actually on how to make Bende dots in Photoshop to show you how I do that, if that's something you want to watch. But I'll do it anyway, and if you want to watch it, cool. If not, just another video to throw in my library, and I'll feel good knowing it's out there for at least one person watches it, you know? And I could do that in seconds. You know, you just make a gradient, you click a couple menu buttons, bam, you got that background. But in Clip Studio, it doesn't have those same options, so I had to go through a lot of aggravation to figure it out. I mean, it was easy once I kind of looked it up and watched a couple videos, but it wasn't intuitive. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, I just fill in the blue first, and here I'm doing his eye. I wanted the eye to pop, and you know, the bright blue, so I went in with a couple different blues and lighter blues, and I highlighted with a darker blue to give it definition, because just a bright blue spot really wouldn't do it. You need to be able to see that it's an eye, and you know, if you look at an eye, it just looks like a bunch of lines going into the black circle of the iris or the cornea, whatever the hell it's called. And so I gave it a little more detail than I would normally put into an eye. I didn't get crazy with it because, you know, it's a little drawing on a little thing, and if I ever print these out, it would be a 9x12. So someday I might make prints, and you guys could get one. But yeah, the coloring also goes pretty quick, except for the background. Yeah, so followers are actually starting to come faster, which is nice. So it makes me feel good that people are actually watching these things, and if you're one of them, thank you. But if it gets to a point where there's enough and people ask for it, I will be able to make prints of these and offer them to you, but you know, it's a little ways down the road. Gojo could also use cursed energy to float and fly, and I think he could actually teleport. And one of the cool things in the last season was when the spirits, they kind of take over a part of Tokyo, and they're kind of in the subway, and they're holding everybody hostage, and they're turning people into curses, and they're making a big mess of everything, and some of the sorcerers are trapped in the bubble, and some are outside, and Gojo just kind of walks in, and he gets to where all the stuff is happening, because he's pretty much the only one powerful enough to stop all these guys, and he just lets loose, and he starts basically manhandling all these curses. And one of the things that these sorcerers have are domains, and the domain is built off of your mind and your memory, and it's its own little pocket dimension you put people in. And Gojo's is called Infinite, and if you go in there, basically you're just bombarded with tons and tons of information, more than the brain can handle in a matter of seconds, and it basically shuts you down, and you're no good after that. And he figures the only way he could stop all these curses and save the most people that he can is to open his domain in the subway. The problem is, if you have it open too long, it will kill the people inside of it. So he's pretty smart, and he's good with math. That's how he makes all his powers work in ways that they normally wouldn't or shouldn't, or that a normal person couldn't use them. So he figures that he could open his domain for like a fraction of a second or 2 seconds or something like that. And he just opens it, and basically everything freezes around him, and he just goes to town and murders the hell out of all the curses and saves a ton of people. And when he comes out of it, you know, the people are basically comatose, the people he didn't hurt, because he's there to save the people, obviously. And I think it says in the story that everybody who was caught in his domain, because they use him as a scapegoat afterwards, we'll get to that in a second, they were in comas for months and they all needed therapy from what they saw. But he saved all their lives, and that was the important part. Because then after that, he's pretty much done taking care of the mess, and Geto shows up, but he thought he killed Geto at the end of the first movie. Well, he did kill Geto, but there's another spirit that basically reanimated his corpse. He's got the scar on his head and everything. And that catches Gojo off guard long enough so that they can basically trap him in a box that holds him in time and space for a certain amount of time. And we'll see if he gets out of that in the next season. But right now, Gojo's trapped in the box. And I'm hoping you saw it because the thing came out a year or two ago. So I'm being a little free with spoilers here. So Yuji, the person that Gojo steps in to save in the first episode, and who's basically the main protagonist of the whole story, he is just like a very strong, very agile human. And he ends up eating one of Sukuna's fingers, and his parts are scattered all over the place, and I think he eats it to keep it away from somebody else. And it doesn't kill him, it doesn't do anything to him, but the more he eats, the more it affects him, and the more he becomes, entwined with Sukuna. And Sukuna, at one point, they make a deal or whatever, where Sukuna stays down and Yuji controls, and I don't remember, it's a big mess. But after the whole thing with Gojo in the train station and he's put into the box, Yuji's injured to the point where he's almost dead, and one of the demons or curses feeds Yuji a bunch of Sukuna's fingers, and Sukuna basically takes over, and he's very powerful at this point because there's a lot of pieces of him in Yuji now, and he destroys most of the city and just tears things up. And once it's all settled, they pretty much blame everything on Gojo because he's in the box and he's not around to defend himself, so we'll see where all that goes. I think I already mentioned that a little bit earlier. I noticed something when I'm talking over these videos. I start out at the beginning with, "Hey all, how you doing?" And as I get more comfortable talking about the subject or the topic, I kind of get more laid back, and I slow down a little, and my voice gets a little deeper, and I convey things a little slower, and I'm not quite sure why that is. It's not because I'm losing energy or anything. I just think it's a comfort thing. I went a little simpler with the Gojo drawing because I've been going pretty hard the last couple that I drew. The Superman one, that's Superman, it's Thor, there's buildings in the background, there's a lot of cape, so that one took a while to do. That video was like an hour long. And then I did a Fantastic Four video. Well, it's not really the Fantastic Four, it's Galactus and the Silver Surfer, and that's going to be put up when the Fantastic Four movie comes out. And that one's going to be pretty long too, and it's just covered in detail, like with Galactus and his helmet and all the panels all over him and everything. Although I did kind of lose 50 to 60% of the inking on that. The video just either got lost or I forgot to push record because I did parts of that one when I was with family and trying to work and socialize at the same time. Bad idea. Don't do it. So I think I forgot to hit the record button. So with this one, I just wanted to slow down a little and do a nice simple drawing. And we got Gojo. And here we go with the background. I guess I lied earlier. I guess I just pre-made this and loaded it up. But I do move it around a lot, change the size, change the colors, change the color modes. And that's another reason why this took so long. I don't always leave these things in the video when I'm switching through color modes or I'm shutting layers on and off to find things, because God forbid I should organize my layers and name them properly. That would probably save me time on everything I do. But I just kind of go one layer at a time and make my mess. And that stuff I just edit out. I don't edit out the drawing, I don't edit out the coloring, but sometimes I'll cut out the tedious parts where I got where I'm looking for things or trying to find things or saving things. And this one I left a lot of that in because I think sometimes you need to see that too. like the Superman drawing, there's one part where I spend like a couple minutes just shutting layers on and off and going through different menus for things. And, you know, I don't actually do anything as far as drawing and coloring. So I just chopped that right out of the video. But for Gojo here, I'm leaving a lot of this in just to show that sometimes, you know, even a simple background takes more time than you think it does, because you got to figure out the colors, you got to figure out your blending modes if you're using them, and you got to put it all together. And sometimes that takes more than just say, hey, I'm gonna throw a texture layer on here and sign it, which I have done. The Venom Mouse one, I pretty much did that, made it purple and drew a couple webs really quick. But this one, you know, I wanted a certain look, so I had to work at it and take time to put it together. I believe I mentioned in the Superman video that I started another drawing of Frankenstein's monster versus Frankenberry, the cereal icon, because I was talking to a friend of mine about drawings, and I said I wanted to draw monsters like the Universal monsters and some horror characters, like not modern horror because I don't really watch that, but I watch some of the classic horror and stuff from the 80s and whatnot, and the 70s, and I really like the old Universal monsters. That's why I started Frankenstein. He's like, oh, you should mash it up with something. And I'm like, how about Frankenberry? It's like, oh, that's cool, let's do that. And I am going to finish that, but I started watching a documentary on Mike Mignola the other night at like 2 o'clock in the morning. So I was up till 4 o'clock in the morning watching this thing that I was just gonna like bookmark so I could watch it the next day. But, you know, you start watching something like that and it catches your attention and something you're interested in, you just can't look away. And his style is very different than mine, although I would call him an influence on part of the way I use blacks on top of the whole Batman animated series thing, and Frank Miller. Mike Mignola is in there too. He was one of the guys I was trying to cop things from back in art school. And it made me think of another drawing I want to do, another Universal monster related to Frankenstein. And I'm going to do the Bride. And I'm going to do her in kind of like a punk rock look. So that should be cool. And I'm going to start working on that tonight. But the reason I bring that up is if there's any monsters or anything that I didn't think about that would make a cool drawing, like a Chud or a Cujo or something, put that in the comments also and let me know, and maybe I'll take a crack at it. But in the near future, we're going to be getting the Punk Rock Bride, and I'm tapping the table, so if you can hear that, I'm sorry. And I'm going to do the Frankenstein Frankenberry. So that's 2 at least, but I'll probably definitely do like a Bela Lugosi inspired Dracula. I'll probably do a mummy, and I'll probably do a creature from the Black Lagoon, which Art Adams, another artist I talk about all the time, he did a graphic novel called Creature Features, and one of the stories is a creature from the Black Lagoon. It's pretty awesome. He also draws a really cool Godzilla. Maybe I'll do a Godzilla too. Like I'll do a big Godzilla head in the roar and have him fighting somebody else who's like, you know, going at him. That might be cool. Also, I want to do some more anime. I already did 2 from My Hero Academia, and I think I'm going to do an All Might 2, or Deku, or All Might and Deku when it comes closer to the release of the new series. I'll probably do a Cowboy Bebop. I'm sure people still remember Cowboy Bebop, one of the classics. I'm actually 3D printing Spike's ship, the Swordfish, right now, and I'm going to build that. But I'd probably do a Spike and a Faye, you know, back-to-back kind of thing, because that's one of my favorite animes of all time. And I also am watching Kaiju number 8 and Dan to Dan and Fire Force, so maybe I'll do something with those too. And back to Gojo, well, the drawing anyway. I had this idea to kind of like have his power sort of radiating out of him, so I picked one of my favorite Bende brushes, and I just started outlining him over and over again, and then I actually move it so it's not so sterile and it's not right on him. And I thought that was a cool effect for the background too, since like I said, it's simple, but there's also a lot going on. So I throw my signature on, my little stamp there, and I'm thinking I'm done, but I decide that I'm not entirely happy with the pose. I think he's a little stiff and he's leaning back a little too far, and just rotating him isn't going to fix the problem. and I saw a video about a new tool in Clip Studio called the Puppet Warp, and I didn't really use it. I used the regular warp. But I take Gojo, I warp him up a little bit, I tilt him forward, and then I'm much happy with him. He looks a lot less stiff and a lot less like he's wearing a pillow. And then I take his outfit and I cut in a few more highlights and make it look a little less blocky, even though, I mean, the way I draw everything's a bit blocky, but I want to break up some of the areas that were big and dark and just add a little more of the lighter blue into it. And my favorite little dash lines to make things look a little more interesting. I hope you all enjoyed my rambling through this drawing of Saturo Gojo. We'll probably revisit the Jujutsu Kaisen world once the new series comes out and I watch it, or I am watching it, and it's fresh in my head. And I'm not doing this 2 years after the last time I watched an episode, because, you know, you forget a lot, especially when you got a lot going on and, you know, things change around you and you watch 20 other shows. And here I decided that I wanted him looking at the camera instead of away from the camera. So I took it and I redrew his eye, which was a real pain in the butt because it was already done. But we get it done, and with that, we are finished with Gojo. So I want to thank you all for coming along for the draw. Do the whole like, subscribe, comment thing, because that helps those YouTube algorithm things put me in front of the world. And I'll see you next time.